I also want to bring into the conversation now our law enforcement expert to help us break down what we're seeing as this is getting a bit messier. I want to bring in now Scott Duffey. Scott, thanks for being with us here on Live Now from Fox. We've been covering this extensively. We really appreciate you for hopping on. You're a former FBI agent. Austin and I have been watching these images, and as journalists, we're just trying to interpret what we're seeing. But there's a lot of thought process that also goes on behind the scenes as these authorities have to address what we're seeing there on the screen.
Yeah, good evening, Christina and Austin. Thank you for having me. It seems like we're just seeing what was rhetoric early on, and I'm talking about going way back, is now turning into an escalation of a free-for-all, where the right to protest is an absolute right in our society, to gather peacefully and to make your majority voice, your minority voice, whatever is your issue known. What we are seeing here, and I think we started to see it especially in Newark a couple of weeks back, when you have elected officials or legislators, one who make policy, law, all of a sudden standing against law enforcement by blocking, whether it be using your body or some sort of passive aggressive way. We are now seeing this across the nation where ICE, CBP, our law enforcement partners who are carrying out their duty to enforce the laws of the United States. And so when they are stopped, when you have a van full of what we believe are lawfully arrested individuals who are being detained to be brought through the process, a judicial process, and then to go through deportment proceedings. When you have a van full of arrested individuals, a car full of arrested individuals, and then for them to be stopped by protesters, by people who are interfering with law and order, you are putting them at risk, because the whole idea, once you've arrested somebody, is to immediately get out of the area that you made the arrest and transport them to a secure facility that's obviously safe for the individual who's arrested and safe for the law enforcement officers who made that arrest. Now they're being held in traffic because obviously they're not going to be able to move forward with the crowds that we are seeing. And we're just seeing chaos. This is sheer chaos that's unfolding, which is a dangerous precedent. And I'm not sure where this is going.
Scott, can you see the California image on your screen? We've been watching less than lethal rounds being used as we've watched these scenes unfold today and late last night. What type of less than lethal rounds are often used during these types, and what purpose do they serve? Lots of people out there are already going to know the answer to this question, but I would love it in your words.
Yeah, so Austin, what you're seeing is not just protesters, right? So let's address, this is where they now believe this is stepped into, these individuals are breaking the law because they're interfering with an arrest. And so the less than lethal could be bean bags or some, and I might be mischaracterizing, but they are obvious, it's like going to, if you're, the paintballs, et cetera. These are projectiles that are aimed to hurt, they could break the skin, they could, but they are projectiles at a very low rate of speed coming out of the weapons that are designed to, hey, you didn't listen to my voice, and my voice is my first command. You've now no longer complying, and you have been told that you are now breaking the law. And so we can do one of two things. We can come and arrest you by putting you in handcuffs and removing you, but law enforcement is outnumbered here. So it would be more dangerous for them to go into the crowds and start trying to put zip ties, handcuffs, and remove those individuals who are not being compliant. So you're going to send out projectiles. You're going to send out tear gas. You're going to send out what is given to law enforcement as that next step of use of force. Because ultimately, each and every one of those individuals that have stepped over the line from protest to blockade and thereby can be arrested. And so you're seeing law enforcement do everything in their power to hold back, not escalating, but trying to de escalate. And one of those measures would be the use of gas, the use of smoke, the use of these less than lethal projectiles that are aimed to hurt. They're when they strike the body, it is like, okay, I'm getting out of here. I don't want to suffer that again, and they're going to leave welts and so forth. So it it is a sign that force is now being used, and hoping that the crowds that they are seeing that are not complying are going to start to disperse. They want them to leave. They want them to run. They want them to vacate that area.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for that explanation, Scott. I also want to put this up on the screen because we have been taking the camera view of Matthew Seedorf. He's a reporter there with Fox 11 in Los Angeles. He is on the ground, as you can see in the background of this video. He is at that Home Depot where this appears to have broken out there, these protests, saying that their vehicle took a hit there in Paramount, with protesters continuing to square off with Border Patrol agents. He's trying to block out the language that was on the screen as well there. And this was very painted on the side of their news car, saying that our vehicle took a hit. Protesters continue to square off with Border Patrol agents. The situation has been going on for about 5 hours now. Scott, if you don't mind me asking, how much longer do you perceive these to be going on? Austin and I have been talking a lot about how this is a Saturday. A lot of folks are not at work if you're working a general 9 to 5. This could provide for a lot more people to be out there on the ground participating in these protests. How much longer do you think that we may see these images still coming into our newsroom?
Yeah, Christina. So I'm going to not use the word protest because I think this has exceeded that protest right. This is a violation of law where you have individuals that are blockading traffic. You have look at that whole highway. What is that? A 4, 5, 6 lane highway. Look how many resources have to be brought out of the communities where they're doing whatever type of patrols to now shut down vehicular traffic because they're doing their job to protect the very people that are creating this chaos. So law enforcement today has to withstand a lot more than we have in years past. Their whole job is moving towards de-escalation, to not use force, except at the point that you have to make a decision that this is no longer remaining calm, that they're not just being passive aggressive and standing arm locked and blocking roads and blocking gates, to where law enforcement has to enter into a federal detention facility. You are at the point that, like you said, it's a Saturday. So if this continues to go on, as we will see media coverage and so forth, will it be an invite for additional people to be like, I want to be in the middle of that, and I want to participate in this chaos because I believe in my heart that all this is wrong, and we see this from many of our elected officials, and so thereby I want to do my part in blocking these arrests. And so the rhetoric has gotten out of control, and now law enforcement has to put an end to it swiftly. And when I say swiftly, yeah, 5, 6, 7 hours seems to be a long time, but you are seeing those deployments of less than lethal, whether it be smoke, whether it be these projectiles that are coming out. Because at the same time, um, as if they allow more and more people to come into this fray of chaos, it's only going to be worse for the law enforcement that's on the ground because we're already, as you can see, that news van, that is an act of violence, that vandalism, that where people are doing things and committing criminal acts in the name of whatever it is that they are trying to get across as a message. It has gone from protest to breaking the law. So law enforcement is trying to continue those de-escalation practices, but they also have to shut it down before other people start coming, and then they are just going to be outnumbered to the point of what more and more chaos. So it is a very difficult situation for law enforcement to be a part of this and try to quell whatever acts of violence that could be coming out, in additional, whether it be through throwing whatever bottles, whatever projectiles at law enforcement, destroying cars, homes, businesses. Law enforcement will have to act to put an end to it, while at the same time threading that very small needle of trying to constantly de escalate and get these people to move on.
Let's say that the de escalation efforts, as they stand, don't work. What other tools do law enforcement agencies have at their disposal to get this crowd under control if they do need to escalate things further later on in the day, Scott?
Yeah. And we have seen this in the past where they could be standing for hours if and often it seemed like probably days where you're actually bringing in additional officers to relieve the other officers who are tired, and thereby their decision making skills may not be keen. So I imagine there is in place a plan, and that plan may be at hour 6, at hour 7, we're going to put an end to this. Um, and so you'll be calling in additional resources. That's a lot of law enforcement out there, but it's not a lot of law enforcement compared to what you see of individuals that are out there and creating havoc. You'll have many onlookers who are, hey, I'm not going to push the limit. I'll stay in where I can and film and whatever they're going to do. But ultimately, it must be a true show of proper force, proportionate force, where law enforcement will then begin to make, once they have the available resources, that not only manpower but the equipment in order to move forward and clear, um, and hoping that people are going to be running and leave. This is your time to leave, and escape any type of arrest. But at that point, once law enforcement starts to make those advancements to clear whatever areas of public sidewalks and streets that need to be cleared, they're going to be doing it, and they're going to be doing it very effectively because they train and be making many arrests. In other words, there will be hands-on officers that are going to be able to zip tie, grab people, and they're going to go behind the line of law enforcement as they continue to advance and try to break up this crowd. Then you have officers on the perimeter that are going to ensure that people are not circling back behind them. So it is a very tall task, but law enforcement, especially in large cities such as New York and Los Angeles, that they will be able to effectively do that, and they have in the past. But you are exercising, that is, law enforcement is exercising tremendous caution, giving people as much as possible. And here we are in quite a few hours. But I might believe they don't want this to go into the dark, into the night, because then they lose that tactical advantage where things could be flying and things could be happening that they may not be able to see. So I think they're putting in a plan right now to say at this hour, if if people are not clearing, then we're going to make those advancements.
I'm glad you pointed that out, Scott, because we heard there from those officials. This is all happening in Southern California there on your screens. We have our ground shot there on the top left-hand side of the corner, our Skyfox shot from the aerial views capturing what we're able to see. Not so well on the ground, but truly the size of this gathering that's going on there in Southern California. I also want to put some stuff up on the screen as well. This is from the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, saying an insurrection against the laws and sovereignty of the United States. This is what he's calling this gathering there in Southern California, this protest, saying that and again, we do know White House Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller, to be an immigration. Some of that video footage of what has been happening as well. So we're trying to keep folks updated. What we're hearing from some of these representatives and other folks in our government. But right now, also, the Democrat there, representative from the 44th District in California, Nanette Barragan, saying that Trump and Stephen Miller are unleashing terror on Los Angeles and Latino communities around California and the rest of the country. This was never about criminals or public safety. This was always about the plan. They want us to spread fear and intimidate hardworking Latinos. We're trying to just continue to add context so that way when we're showing you these images here on Live Now, we're able to do that. But as we're taking a look at some of this, Scott, how difficult is it at this point when we're starting to see some of the response that's going out on X? Does that include and continue to sort of inflame how folks are feeling when it's being talked about on the internet? People may be watching us even right now, seeing these live images. Does that invoke people to even join in on these protests that are happening?
I would say all the above, Christina. You have, I always hate seeing, regardless, when our elected officials or on behalf of elected officials, when they start going to social media, and you kind of see that escalation. I don't like to say any of that because it's not helping the boots on the ground, the law enforcement who are there, who are simply doing their job. And they are trying to allow those who are peacefully protesting where they are allowed to be, not obstructing, not committing crimes, but voicing whatever it is, their message. However, when we see on X or any other social media platform where you have this war of words, that brings people more to wanting to head to the streets and participate in creating havoc. And we have to step back and realize what exactly is going on here. So you have law enforcement doing their job, who are effectively enforcing the laws of the United States. And when those and if there is a debate, the debate happens in a courtroom, and elected officials can get together and try to figure out what it is that will calm the storm here, as opposed to raising the temperature that ultimately is going to hurt the people on the ground. And when I say the people, law enforcement, who is trying to open up the roadways, protect the businesses, and ensure the proper passage and transportation of detained and arrested individuals to a secure and safe facility. But at the same time, all the people who are out there, you have probably many good-hearted people, but they're getting incited, and they're getting their temperatures are going up, and their heart is racing, and you get into this group atmosphere. If somebody's running towards something, you'll have other people running, not knowing what they're running to, and that just creates a major safety concern. And law enforcement on the ground, their job is to protect people. And while at the same time trying to do everything to protect that line of defense. So the words on social media do not help. Allow law enforcement on the ground to do their job to come up with a plan when and and it's going to happen. Make that decision of what hour that we have to move in. Now, protests. People are upset at this, and they're going to go out to the streets and protest. Gather peacefully, protest because it is the right of the United States, and stay out of harm's way and do no harm. I mean, these are simple tasks, and as we can see, law enforcement is in a predicament here where they have to ensure the safety of everybody that's there, and protect property from any type of vandalism and et cetera. So it's, and now if you continue to allow this and temperatures are high, then you're going to bring other people from another side, and you're just going to have this clash of very angry on a very hot day. I imagine it looks very hot there, and it's just a recipe for disaster. Law enforcement has to be able to dispel that.
So, Scott, I'm just going to reset here for anybody new joining us. What we're watching in progress is a protest against federal ICE raids that have been taking place in Southern California the past 24, 48 hours or so. U.S. immigration authorities extended activity in the LA area today in the wake of protests at a federal detention facility and a police response that included tear gas, flashbangs, and the arrest of a union leader. Today's round of protests that we're looking at right now in Paramount, California, Scott, Fox's Bill Malugin says that despite local claims, there were no ICE raids going on at the Home Depot that this all began at. This all began at a Home Depot parking lot in Paramount, California. Bill Malugin says that DHS has a nearby office in Paramount and that they were using this parking lot as a staging area. Protesters then found it and began gathering around the staging area. Scott, what is a staging area for? What might those agents have been doing in the parking lot? They weren't, as Bill says, they were not actively carrying out a raid at the Home Depot. So why might they have been staging there and ultimately attracted a crowd?
That sheds a lot of light, Austin. And so Home Depots, or, not to give anything to a Home Depot versus a Lowe's or any other large shopping center that has quite a big parking area. I've used quite a bit of Home Depots and other large parking areas as my staging area. So a staging area is a place where law enforcement, and in my belief here is federal, state, and local law enforcement task forces of sorts, are staging, doing that very thing to gather, where the leaders of, let's just say, a planned arrest, a planned search, some sort of law enforcement activity, and typically nearby. So we would try to do it within a half mile or a square mile to wherever our target location would be, and that is to effect an arrest or to effect a search. And so you'll have all your law enforcement resources brought to that staging area because you need a pretty large space. There's probably quite a few law enforcement officers involved in whatever law enforcement practice they were going to do. And because there are lots of eyes on law enforcement, you could have had somebody that says, "Oh, this is something bad," and can tweet out something X, whatever social media platform, and then begins, "Hey, let's get over here and interfere with the law enforcement practice." So that makes a lot more sense now hearing that. And then of course Home Depot is just at the center. Typically, the business is not necessarily made aware of a staging area. It would be law enforcement. Perhaps law enforcement goes and does a liaison and says, "Hey, if we don't want to interfere with your business, but we're going to be stationed here. And ultimately, at a staging area, law enforcement gathers. There's an operational plan, and that is a handwritten plan of where they're going, whatever their law enforcement practice may be. Like I said, probably an arrest, a search, or a combination of both. And then you will have, if it's a location, you'll have the location given to every officer, so they know exactly where they're going. And then they'll be saying, the leaders of this plan, we're going to be following this. So this will be the lead car, this will be the entrance team, and if it is a search or an arrest, and here are the individual or individuals we are looking for. So this way, law enforcement who is part of the arrest or search plan or law enforcement activity knows exactly what it is that they need to do. So you'll have a inner team, an inner perimeter team. You'll have an entrance team. You'll have an outer perimeter team. You'll have which roads need to be cordoned off and shut off. So this way, there's no traffic going by, because what they're doing is ensuring efficient law enforcement response without any type of individuals on the outside and vehicular traffic, whatnot, being potentially injured or property destroyed. So that's when Bill's reporting correctly about a staging area. That makes perfect sense. We would always look for a large parking area close to wherever we were going to go to conduct a search and or arrest.
So, Scott, can they do this? We'll call it a staging area. Can they do this outside of the public's view? Because this happened last night as well. They were in a parking lot in Chinatown in LA. They attracted a crowd. Before we knew it, there were lots of journalists, citizen journalists, people live streaming them as they were in the staging area in the parking lot. And then again, we saw a similar thing happen today, and that's what's led to the pictures that we've been watching. Can they stage somewhere outside of the public's eye?
Yeah, Austin, they're going to have to pivot here. So traditionally, you are staging very quickly. You get the plan, and then you get in your vehicles and you go to the location of whatever that law enforcement process is going to be. And because this is such a hot topic, and people are they're putting everything aside and they're heading to these locations thinking that they are doing good, and they are willing to interfere with a law enforcement practice. That is an obstruction of justice. They can be arrested. And so I totally agree. Yes, they can, and they should. It all depends, where can they do this, especially if the arrest is to be not just of one individual, but series of individuals. So I can tell you a typical manpower for a search and arrest of something that I've done in the past. You may have one or two individuals that are going to be arrested in one location to be targeted for a search, and easily 15 to 20 minimum of personnel. That's you're going to have an entrance team, an arrest team, a perimeter team. You're going to have a search team that after the person is secured, if in fact this was an arrest, there's going to be a search. And so you have to have a proper response of what our response would be, an evidence response team. And so that's a lot of people to gather. Typically, a law enforcement building, a courthouse, any type of secure where you would have gates or something, it's just not large enough. And so at the same time, you want to stage in an area that's relatively close to the target location, business, residence, whatever have you. So that's why it does make it difficult, but I totally agree. Because this is such a hot topic and people are just coming out in droves and creating havoc and chaos, which is ultimately going to cost or create potential for injury and property damage, that law enforcement is going to have to pivot and figure out something different in order for these operations to continue to proceed and be effective.
And Scott, I got a couple questions for you here, but I want to make sure that we're still resetting with our viewers here who are just now joining us on Live Now from Fox. We're in a new hour here, but we have been covering this for quite some times. What we're seeing now on our screen is some video that's being refed into us. This is not live, but it's just another vantage point of what we've been seeing happening in Los Angeles as folks are responding to some of these ICE raids that have been happening all around the city. So again, this is not in live image, but this is some of that's being fed into our newsroom as well. And so we're going to catch up here in just a second and reset for folks just now joining us because the Department of Homeland Security has also now released a statement. I want to read this out for folks as well, saying they're referring to last night, but this is still ongoing at this point. But they said last night, over 1,000 rioters surrounded a federal law enforcement building, as we're seeing here, and assaulted ICE law enforcement officers. They slashed tires, defaced buildings, and taxpayer-funded property. It took the Los Angeles Police Department 2 hours to respond. Our ICE enforcement officers are facing a 413% increase in assaults against them. Disturbingly, in recent days, ICE officers' family members have been doxxed and targeted as well. These riots in Los Angeles increased assault on ICE officers after politicians, they name a few, saying Hakeem Jeffries, the Mayor Wu of Boston, Tim Walz, and others have villainized and demonized ICE law enforcement. So this is the statement that we're seeing here from, again, this is all coming from the Department of Homeland Security. What we're watching on our screen right now is some video footage of what happened in LA. Want to put this back up live as well so folks can remember that we're still here covering this live on Live Now from Fox, as it seems that more people are now pouring in, more law enforcement are coming in as well. I'm hoping my producers can put up the tweet that we had from Bill Malugin as well, referring to the type of agents that we are now seeing as well who are going to be responding here. I want to ask you about that as well, Scott. I want to put this up on your screen so folks at home are able to see it as well. This is what Bill said. He said elite Border Patrol BORTAC units are on scene in Los Angeles. They are the elite of the elite within DHS. Border Patrol SWAT. They are the ones who rushed in and killed the Uvalde school shooter when local police waited around. Not the guys you want to mess with you're there. This is from Fox's Bill Malugin, how he describes these agents. I have to ask you, Scott, would you have a similar sentiment? What are we seeing with some of these specialized forces as they are now moving in to help quell some of the protests?
Yeah, and they have protocols as well. So they're just not going around to any law enforcement activity with regards to ICE or any type of CBP activities. They are called in when it is deemed to be necessary. Just like our team, our elite team would be the hostage rescue team, the HRT. Every division has a fantastically trained SWAT team, but the HR team is, would be considered even within our own ranks, the elite of the elite. And so every federal agency has those similar elite units. And so they've been called in because they believe this is very necessary, as you are seeing, your number of 413 or whatever, upwards of 400% for threats or some sort of citation of violence. That is unbelievable to me, and it seems like it is the ground of level of what we're seeing escalate. So I absolutely see these elite teams coming in order to assist with not just crowd control. They're not there for protests and rallies and so forth. They're there because they believe there is a threat, a potential threat, a high-level threat of imminent danger to their own.
So, Scott, what is the proper way to protest? How can people go about doing what they want to do, getting the message that they want to out there without getting it escalated to the point where we're seeing riot gear, sheriffs, deputies like we're seeing right now? What's the correct way to protest?
That's a tough question. I'm not sure there's a correct way. I will say this, um, because being a father of four, and you're young, your teenagers, your 20s something, they want to participate in the right to do whatever that makes this country great, right? The beauty of our ability to rally, to protest, to be in opposition to what you believe is wrong, and those are all good things. However, when I see uh, somebody who may be my child to say, "Hey, I saw this on social media, and I'm going to go to being me outside of Philadelphia. I'm going to go into Philadelphia and kind of," I'll be like, "No, you're not going," and so thereby I start with the level head. Make a decision. Hey, you know what? I want to participate in my right as an American, or my right as a citizen, or my right of, by being in this country, to go out and gather and try to be a voice for whatever it is that you're trying to get your message across, right? So first and foremost, a plan. I'm going to go out because I believe this is a right thing to do. No different than a festival, a fair, a parade. It is a plan, it's a celebration, it's a large gathering, and law enforcement is there to help keep you safe while at the same time enjoying those festivities. Good rallies, protests, there still can be that level headed planning, and people show up, and they, first and foremost, in order to participate in um, the reality of what makes it a good protest, um, at the same time lawful, you know, the planners of a rally, a protest, go get your permits, follow everything that is in place. Do not block traffic, do not block human beings from going wherever they want to go to cross the street. Do not push, do not shove, do not have any acts of violence, do not have any thought. And so I say start with a plan and a level head, and then go out and join. When this type of thing happens, you have this rhetoric that's just getting you all tense, and so you begin to lose a little bit of that level-headedness, and you believe that a wrong is being committed here because you don't have the facts of what actually is happening. Is this a true law enforcement function here where people are getting court processes? They are going to the court and doing everything that they are lawfully allowed to do in order to get search warrants, arrest warrants, and to go and execute that lawful plan, right? And people can get upset with that. Um, you can go and if you want to stand on a sidewalk and not block anything, and whether you have a sign, a flag, whatever it is that gets your message across.